A true story from Korea. This is a story about something I experienced in the early morning hours of July 29th, 2010.
At the time, I was working part-time delivering hamburgers. It was right around the time the delivery system had just started being introduced, so calls came in irregularly, and I was stuck in a routine of clocking in at 9 p.m. and clocking out at 4 a.m. over and over. In the early hours of that day, I went to deliver to a fitness center in a newly built building near a nearby university. The building was designed like an outlet mall, with an open central atrium, and the parking lot was on basement level 2. Since I hate dealing with anything bothersome, I parked on basement level 2 and took the elevator up. After I handed over the order and finished the payment, I got back in the elevator and, without thinking twice, pressed the button for basement level 2. If you've ever done delivery work, I think you'll understand. When you're waiting for an elevator door to open, you unconsciously end up standing so close, your head almost touches the door. I did the same. I just stood there in that position, absent-mindedly waiting. And then the doors opened. But I was just about to step forward when I stopped. Truly, purely on reflex. In a parking garage, you'd expect the fluorescent lights to be on everywhere, right? But right in front of me, it was pitch black, like there was nothing there at all. The floor, the pillars, the cars, it was just a black void. In that moment, my mind went completely blank. Did I press the wrong button? Panicking, I stepped back into the elevator and checked the floor display. Turns out I'd gotten off on basement level 1, not basement level 2. On basement level 1, there was a space that was originally supposed to become a movie theater, but the plan fell through, and I'd heard it had been blocked off from entry. But the real problem came next. I pressed the button for basement level 2 again, and then, all of a sudden, the elevator display flashed. Overcapacity. Even though I was alone, in that instant, it felt like adrenaline surged up from deep inside my body all at once. My legs started shaking, my heart thumped like it had gone insane, and my head was spinning with thoughts exploding one after another. Should I bolt out right now? Or should I stay inside this lit elevator? Should I charge through that darkness and run to basement level 2? What made it even more hopeless was that, back then, I had a haptic phone. It didn't have a flashlight function like smartphones do now. I had absolutely no light to take with me into the dark. I think it was only a few seconds, even at most, 5 or 6 seconds. Then the overcapacity message suddenly disappeared. The elevator doors closed, and it just went up to the first floor. I rushed out of the building almost as if I were fleeing, went back to the shop, and told everyone what had happened. Of course, no one believed me. Who would? But even after several days, that scene wouldn't leave my head. I definitely pressed B2, so why did the doors open on B1? In the end, on my day off in the daytime, I went to the building's management office and politely asked for their help. The management staff watched the CCTV with me. First, I never pressed the button for basement level 1. Second, basement level 1 wasn't even a floor you could reach just by pressing the button. The camera was pointed at the elevator doors, and the CCTV footage clearly showed the moment I got off. First, I never pressed the button for basement level 1. Second, basement level 1 wasn't even a floor you could reach just by pressing the button. They said it had been sealed off so you could only go down if someone unlocked it with a key to prevent theft or loss. After confirming that, I regretted it even more. In my memory, it was just for a moment. But on the screen, I was standing there in front of the door for much longer than I'd realized. Do I step out into that darkness or not? I could see that hesitation with striking clarity. After that day, I quit my job.
A true story from Korea. An on-site consultation at a prayer retreat.
After some time had passed since that incident, I started working in car sales. At a new car dealership, whether you're handing out flyers or running ads, It's a job where you basically have to live with your phone number out in public. When calls come in, you have to consult with people. And if they want a test drive, you have to make time for them. Maybe that's why. But working at a dealership, you sometimes run into scary situations. But what I experienced was the kind of thing you could never explain with words like, on the job. One day, I got a call late at night. They said they wanted to buy a car and wanted advice on a car their wife would be driving. They told me the location was at a religious facility and asked me to come out for an on-site consultation. The timing was strange, too. At first they said the evening, but in the end it got pushed back to around 10 p.m. Honestly, even at that point, I had a bad feeling about it. But since my job involved handing out flyers, once a call came in, I had no choice but to go. I took my tablet and brochures and headed to the place I was given. Even when I reached the entrance to the village, I couldn't see any facility. When I called, the person told me to go farther in, up a mountain road, more like a Forest Service road, for about 15 minutes. When I finally arrived, there was an iron gate. Once I went inside, it was a place called a prayer retreat, but the atmosphere was far too strange. It didn't feel like I'd been called there for a consultation, more like the gazes and the air inside had been waiting for me. I decided I just needed to finish the consultation as quickly as possible and get out. As we went over the color, options, and price, I started moving forward with the contract process on my tablet. I asked for their name and phone number and tried to move on to the next step. And then came the most important part of the contract: verifying their ID and getting the customer's signature. When you open the signature section, 2 boxes show up, right? The left is the name, and the right is the signature. At that moment, the person said, "My name is a cross, and my signature is a cross," and then started drawing nothing but the shape of a cross, both in the name field and in the signature field. I said it again. "Please write down the name you told me earlier." But the answer I got back was even stranger. "That's my name. I don't have any other name." It wasn't a joke. His tone was far too serious. In that instant, my instincts started screaming at me. If I stay here any longer, something's going to go wrong. I tried to wrap things up somehow, but he didn't seem all that interested in the car, and the conversation kept drifting further and further in a different direction. Only time passed, and my mind felt more and more drained. In the end, I made a decision. I'll leave it here for today, and I'll contact you again another time. The moment I stood up with my bag, the man they called the pastor suddenly came closer to me, and his tone and his gaze changed in an instant. By then, I already had this feeling that I might not be able to get out. So I kept my smart key in my hand. In case I had to get out, I felt like I absolutely needed it. And then, for real, I bolted. I didn't have the luxury of grabbing my tablet or anything else. There was no time to carry all my stuff out. I just threw the door open and ran outside. But then, the door wouldn't open. It was like a thin metal door, but instead of feeling locked, it felt more like it simply wasn't meant to open at all. I slammed my shoulder into it with all the strength in my body. The door burst open as if it were about to break, and in that instant, someone grabbed me by the neck. I'm not exactly weak either. But that hand, it was a different kind of strength. The only way to describe it was inhuman strength. Still struggling for air, I thrashed around desperately. Somehow I twisted my body and slipped free, then ran for my car. As I yanked the door open and climbed in, I hit the lock button with my left hand, then locked it again, and again, like I had to keep confirming it. But the car was facing toward the prayer retreat. In that cramped space, the only way out was to keep shifting back and forth over and over to turn the car around. In that brief moment, I heard something outside pounding on the car and the sound of someone yanking at the door. I just kept backing up, cutting the wheel, cutting it again, and I drove off in a panic. That day, I couldn't even bring myself to drive straight home. At the time, my son was 3 years old. If someone tailed me, I felt like my family could be in danger. So I deliberately took a long detour, parked the car in a place like an empty lot, and went inside only after checking over and over to make sure no car was following me. The next day, I just couldn't leave it like that, because I'd left things behind there yesterday. A tablet PC, a jumper jacket, something like shoes. So I contacted some of my juniors, and a few of them came with me, just in case. Some of them even brought something like baseball bats. We went back there again in the daytime, but something was off. Last night, there were definitely lights on, sheets laid on the floor, cushions, and it was supposed to have been a prayer retreat with people inside. But what we saw in the daylight was a derelict building that looked like it had been abandoned for decades. Rotten through, a building that looked like it could collapse at any moment. Even the sign had peeled away and fallen off. What was even stranger was that, even after going inside, there wasn't a single trace of last night. The things I had left behind were gone too. And yet, on the ground, the tire tracks from my car moving back and forth were still there exactly as they were. First, I tried calling the number that had summoned me. It didn't connect. In the end, all I could do was give up. Ever since then, while working as a dealer, I found myself thinking again about whether the truly scary thing is people or ghosts. When I got back to the shop, there was a coworker at our branch who went to church, but was also really into that kind of stuff. Fortune-telling, 4 pillars and the like. And their nickname was No Mudong. No matter how much I talked things over with them, in the end, we always landed on the same conclusion. We don't know. The only thing I'm left with is this thought. If I had stayed there any longer that night, I might not be here, talking about it now. After that incident, whenever I go out for an on-site consultation, I always make sure to calculate for the just in case. Both people, and things that aren't people. To everyone working in sales, thank you, truly, for all your hard work. And please, let me ask just one thing. Always, watch out for people, and watch out for ghosts too.